Funding for Election 2014 coverage is provided in part by AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan association, 86,000 strong in North Dakota. AARP fights on real issues that matter to you and your family. And by the members of Prairie Public.
Welcome to Prairie Public's continuing coverage of Election 2014. I'm Matt O'Lean. This is the debate for North Dakota's lone congressional seat. Our guests today are the Libertarian nominee, Jack Seaman, the Democratic nominee, George B. Sinner, and the Republican nominee, Representative Kevin Cramer. Beforehand, we drew three numbers out of a hat, the fair way to do it when you have a three-person debate, and that determines seating arrangement and opening statement order. And Jack Seaman is number one. He goes first on a 30-second opening statement. Jack?
Thank you, Matt. And I just want to say thank you to the viewers for tuning in. It's a big decision that you have in front of you, a historic decision that you have in front of you. And I appreciate you taking the time to tune in with us today. A lot of you might be asking, who's a Libertarian and who is this guy and can he win? Well, I think the answer to that is indeed I can win. Libertarians are the fastest growing political party in America, and we want less government and more freedom. And I think the federal government has gotten way too big, it wields way too much power, and it spends way too much money. And I'm going to fight that as your rep in Congress.
George B. Sinner, 30-second opening statement.
Good evening. Thank you, Matt. Thank you to the AARP and Prairie Public for hosting this debate, and thank you to my opponents for being here. Thank you all. It's obvious that Congress is broken, and I believe that I am uniquely qualified with my 35 years of business experience to bring compromise to Washington. I will work very hard on the people of North Dakota when I'm elected. Thank you very much.
Kevin Cramer, 30-second opening statement. Go ahead.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks to AARP and Prairie Public for this rich tradition that you provide, and to Jack and to George as well. Thank you for having the courage to put your name on the ballot and to submit yourself to the people of North Dakota. Thank you to the people of North Dakota. First, for the high honor you've given me to be your representative in Congress, and for the opportunity to share some time with you as you do this little performance evaluation that's a rich tradition in the People's House. I look forward to answering your questions.
Okay, let's move to issue number one, the economy of North Dakota. Economically, North Dakota doing very well nationally compared to other states, even though the national economy has improved in the last few years since the Great Recession. What are the reasons for this, and what is each of yours personal approach and philosophy toward a sound economy, tax and spending issues? George Sinner, you go first this time.
Thank you, Matt. I believe that North Dakota economy is strong basically because of the natural and natural resources that we have in the state, and also because of the wonderful farming tradition that we have here. Our state is very blessed. Today we have some problems here with our transportation system. I have worked very hard over the past several months, beginning in January, bringing it to the legislature to talk about our rail shortage. But let's face it, across this nation, we need to do more. We need to decrease regulation. We need to bring more jobs to people by providing opportunities through tax incentives, tax breaks, and other things that will help people across this nation. Thank you so much.
Okay, Kevin Cramer, response?
Well, I think it's simple. You turn the national economy over to North Dakotans and it'll be fine. I'm blessed to know that I wake up every morning knowing there are 434 of my colleagues that wish that they were me and that they got to represent a place like North Dakota. Strong economy, not because of what the government does, but probably as much as anything by what the government doesn't do. We have a tax, a regulatory, and legal regime that's conducive to investment, that's conducive to job creation, that protects our environment and our cultural resources, that honors the topsoil as much as it does what's underneath the soil. Government knows when to get out of the way, knows when it needs to referee. So we just need to create that same environment at the national level. While it's true, we have rich natural resources. A lot of other states do as well. But we have had a foundation since Ed Schaefer became governor of this state that reinstated common sense, less government, fewer regulations, lower taxes, building a foundation for growing economy. We can do the same in the rest of the country.
Okay, Jack Seaman, response?
Well, there's no question that North Dakota's economy is great. We're the rock stars of the nation. All eyes are upon us, and everyone is envy of us. And we have a lot of wealth, we have a lot of stability, and we have a lot going for us now and in the future. And I think the key for North Dakota is to sustain that growth and keep it going. And I'd just like to point out that nationally, once you get outside the borders of North Dakota, things aren't quite as rosy. And there's a few policies that we could enact in Washington as a congressman on a federal level that will help North Dakota and North Dakotans protect their wealth. For instance, we have a broken and criminal IRS system. We need to look at the way we perform taxation in this country. We need to look at the Federal Reserve. We need to audit and end that and take away its ability to print money and take away people's power to spend through lessening of the dollar and the inflation of the dollar. So while things here in North Dakota are going great, I think there's some things that we could focus on nationally that can ensure we keep it great going forward.
Okay, George Sinner, go ahead, response.
I had that question to start.
Right, but let's talk spending and taxes. Where do you stand on that in terms of a national policy as well?
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
What I will say is I came out with a policy a couple of weeks ago, a proposal that would extend investment tax credits and accelerated depreciation, but I also brought forth a program that would pay for those programs. First, I said that legal settlements in this country should not be deductible. And let's face it, folks, if you get a speeding fine, you don't get to deduct that on your taxes. Why should a corporation who faces a fine be able to deduct that and have the taxpayers pay part of that? Second, I said hedge fund managers that get carried interest. Let's face it there too. If an employee at a business gets some stock from his business as some of his incentive pay, he has to pay regular income on that. Why shouldn't a hedge fund manager do the same? Finally, we have several corporations, multi-billion-dollar corporations, major corporations that have overseas operations, and they are allowed to keep that income overseas and not bring it back to pay taxes. They can still bring the money back here, but they don't bring the income back here on their tax to put it on their balance sheets. It's costing this country billions and billions of dollars a year. It's a way to address our deficit. We can do it very simply by adjusting our tax code, and it will save our country probably up to $50 billion a year when our deficit has been out of control. It's coming better, it's getting better, but we can address these things. And those are ideas that I propose that I think will make a big difference. In the end, we need to help our small businesses, increase investment in farms and small business right here in North Dakota, but we can propose ways to pay for it. And I think that's a very good way to address this situation. Thank you.
Kevin Kramer, response, go ahead.
You just heard George talk about all the ways he'd punish business for not creating more wealth in our country. The reason business can't create wealth in our country is because we punish them too much. We have the highest corporate rates, tax rates in the world. That's why that revenue stays overseas. We need to lower the rates in the United States to incent them to bring their revenue back here, not punish them for doing it in the first place. You're just going to drive them further overseas. With regard to expensing, the House of Representatives has passed twice now 179 expensing to help small business, especially farmers, to deduct their property investments in the year that they incur the expense. That will make the difference between whether a farmer buys a combine or doesn't buy a combine, whether a restaurant owner buys some new equipment or doesn't buy new equipment. That doesn't cost the country money. That generates economic activity, creates jobs for the middle class, which this country needs very badly. With regard to the spending side, since I've been in Congress, we've cut spending 2 years in a row. In fact, for 3 years now, we've had real cuts in total spending in the federal government, which is the first time since the Korean War that's happened, so we can get our deficit under control.
Okay, final word, Jack Seaman, then we'll move on to the next issue.
Well, if we're talking about taxing and we're talking about spending, the first word that comes to my mind is they're both too high. Our tax system is broken. Our IRS is criminal and corrupt. And as your congressman, on day one, I would vote to eliminate the IRS completely and co-sponsor the Fair Tax Act, H.R. 25, which already has 75 co-sponsors. We can change the tax structure in this country, and we can do it very easily. As far as spending goes, it's all fine and good and talk about lowering our spending, but the fact of the matter is the CBO estimates we're still going to come in with a $600 billion deficit this year. That's nowhere near a balanced budget. As your representative in Congress, I would not vote for any budget that isn't balanced, and I think everybody can understand that. Either the budget is balanced or it's not. Will you vote for it or won't you? And that's as simple as I can make it for you.
Let's move to our next issue, gridlock in Washington. It would seem the current Congress is, according to polling, the most unpopular in U.S. history. Is this the state of affairs now? Is this going to be the new normal from now on, or is there a way to fix it? Kevin Kramer, you go first this time.
Well, I certainly hope it's not the new normal, and frankly, we've seen a lot more compromise in the last year than we did the year prior to that, and hopefully we'll see even more of it. I think there's no question. The United States Senate under Leader Harry Reid has been a problem. We've passed in the House now over 390 bills. About 340 or 350 of them actually have a lot of Democrat votes. Many of the ones I've already talked about have a lot of Democrat votes, but the Senate won't take them up at all. So we have a very divisive situation there. I look forward to a new election where we'll perhaps have a little more harmony. I've been very proud and pleased to be supported by Senator Forward. I think I'm the only Republican that they've supported so far. They ran a series of ads, and it has to do with my willingness to work with my Democratic colleagues in the freshman class as one of the leaders of the United Solutions Caucus. It's how I was able to pass my own bill by getting 415 votes. By going across the aisle and saying, here's how your side wins with this. This is how my side wins, and together the American public wins. We need to do a lot more of that, but the real gridlock, Matt, isn't so much within the chamber as it is between the two chambers. And we have two senators and one House member, which makes the burden even heavier for one of the three of us.
Okay, I need to get Jack Seaman in for a response. Go ahead.
Well, when you talk about gridlock in Washington, I think obviously that's the reason why we have congressional approval ratings right now in this country in the single digits. And you have to have people that are willing to partake in that gridlock to have gridlock. And right now, the people that are partaking in it is Democrats and Republicans. And it's been this way for nearly 100 years. We send Democrats and Republicans to Washington expecting to produce a different result, but we seem to end up with gridlock in perpetuity. What I'm offering North Dakota is a chance to vote for somebody that's not a Democrat or Republican, send somebody that's truly different to Washington that will actually stand for real change in D.C.
George Sinner?
We have to have compromise. There's no question about that. Kevin brings up an interesting point about the House passing over 300 bills that the Senate wouldn't take up. Do you know over the last 20 years, 11 of the last legislative sessions have ended with the House having over 300 bills the Senate wouldn't take up? So that's common procedure. But let's face it, folks, over 50 of those bills were to repeal the Affordable Care Act with no solutions proposed. Let's face it, the Senate passed comprehensive immigration reform. Comprehensive. A bill that was voted for by Senator Hoeven and Senator Marco Rubio. Where does it sit today? It's sitting in the desk of John Boehner. It went nowhere. We know we need some compromise. But let's face it, folks, we have to come to the table. We can't have one faction of one party, like the Tea Party, which Congressman Kramer has voted with many, many times, hijacking the information from the other party and hijacking our government. And that's what's going on.
Okay, Kevin Kramer, response?
Sure. First of all, with regard to the amnesty bill that the Senate passed, all I can say about holding it up in the House is you're welcome. I have not talked to very many North Dakotans that think that was a very good idea. The point of us in the House is to make sure good bills get passed, not horrible bills. So the fact that we don't support an amnesty bill is either without compromise or apology. With regard to the bills the House passed that haven't passed Senate, over 40 of them are jobs-creating bills. Things like R&D tax credit being permanent. Things like 179 expensing for farmers and small businesses being a permanent deduction. Things like bonus depreciation, allowing farmers and small businesses to depreciate 50% of their investments in the year that it's incurred if that benefits them. That would create wealth, create jobs. These are all extenders that get extended every 2 years, and we've proposed things that are permanent law so that investors and business creators, job creators, would have that certainty. We've also passed several times now approval of the Keystone XL pipeline, and for some reason we can't get the Senate to take it up. Frankly, we can't get many senators to talk about approving it or even having a vote on it. So this isn't business as normal to have a Senate leader that just goes home early, like when we passed a border security bill in the House of Representatives, stayed a day later. Well, they went home a day earlier, so they wouldn't have to deal with securing our southern border.
Response from Jack Seaman?
Well, again, when you're discussing gridlock in Washington, you have to look at who's participating in the gridlock. And right now it's Democrats and Republicans. And the reason for that, and it seems to be that we elect these people and we send them there, but somehow they become beholden to their party rather than to the people that they represent. And they have to fall lockstep with John Boehner, or they have to fall lockstep with Nancy Pelosi, or they get whipped up by their party leaders. And I think America is fed up with that system. I think North Dakotans are fed up with that system. And by electing a libertarian like myself to Washington, you're going to elect somebody that isn't beholden to either John Boehner or Nancy Pelosi, has a true independent spirit, and can operate independently in Washington without having to worry about, becoming a whipping boy for the party.
Okay, final word on this one, George Sinner, then we'll move to foreign policy.
Oh, thanks. And I agree a lot with Jack on this one. This is caused by both sides, and I promise to be different. You know, Kevin sent out a campaign piece tying me to Nancy Pelosi. You know something? I have never met Nancy Pelosi. I have never spoken to Nancy Pelosi. I have never been in the room with Nancy Pelosi, and Nancy Pelosi has never sent me one nickel. And I am not beholden to Nancy Pelosi or anybody else. Let's face it, folks. Every news media and outlet in this world is saying that the U.S. House of Representatives is the cause for this problem in Washington, the major cause. Sure, there are, like I said before, there are both sides that get some of this, but the Tea Party faction, which my opponent, Congressman Cramer, has voted with time and time again, is the cause of this problem in Washington. They can't even get along in their own party. That's why some of these things don't come up. Let's face it, let's look at the Farm Bill. Congressman John Lucas begged on these guys not to vote for that amendment last summer. What happened? He voted for it, and so did many others, and it shut down the Farm Bill for several months. That's what the problem is in Washington. These guys can't even agree with their own groups on what matters for North Dakota. This is the most important piece of legislation in North Dakota's history, is our Farm Bill. And this guy voted to derail it and keep it off the books for several months. I think that's wrong. That will not happen under my watch, and I promise I will do my best to work for the farmers of this state. Thank you.
We need to move on. Kevin, you can respond to that in your closing statement if you want. Issue 3, let's move to foreign policy. Jack Seaman, you're going to start this time. Lots of things going on right now. ISIS, Syria, Iraq, Ukraine. The Republican Party has heavily criticized President Obama over his handling of these issues. However, polls suggest people do not want boots on the ground in Iraq. Jack Seaman, what are the answers to these issues? You start first.
Well, I think the key answer to this issue, Matt, is to try a bold new policy in that region that we haven't tried in a number of years, and that's to simply stay out and get out. We've been fighting wars in that region actively for the last 13 years. What do we have to show for it? We have about 7,000 dead American troops. We have about 50,000 wounded Americans, many of which are suffering from PTSD and other horrible things that they have to deal with as a result of these wars. I don't see how anybody could sensibly want to have more wars and more intervention when ISIS is the result of more wars and more intervention. And anybody that thinks that going over there and doing the same thing again and expecting a different result, I don't think is thinking clearly. Furthermore, Congressman Cramer just voted to arm the Syrian rebels in Syria. Why are we arming more people in that region? The problem right now is ISIS has weapons that we sent over there that were left behind by the retreating Iraqi soldiers. So the answer is to send more weapons into that region that these rebels, whoever they are and whoever they support, can get their hands on and use against people. It's a mess over there, folks. And the best thing for America to do is to simply get out and stay out. Let the players in the region handle it. It's going to save us lives, it's going to save us blood, and it's going to save us treasure.
Okay, George Sinner, response.
Jack makes some good points there, but let's face it, folks. Anybody that's watching the news today knows that this is a terrible situation, that there's a lot of murdering of innocent people going on, and we can't stand and let that happen. We haven't done that anywhere else in the world, and we need to step up in some way. Now, that said, we need to get everybody in the room to come up with a solution that both Congress and the administration agree with, as well as all of our allies in the region and around the world. We can't go at this alone. We need everybody at that table, and we need everybody putting our ideas together. Now, I will say this. I am not for putting boots on the ground. Our soldiers are war weary, and so is this country. But let's face it, we can go in there with our bombers and with our drones and do a lot of good and hold these guys accountable where they are. Plus, we need to get the players in the region engaged fully. And everybody together, I think we can pull together and come up with a compromise that Congress and the President and all the best allies we had can agree on and try and solve this problem for the people of the world.
Kevin Cramer, you get the final response on foreign policy.
Well, Jack and George have a luxury I don't have. I know a lot more about it than they clearly do, and understandably. I've sat through now 4 classified briefings. I've heard the gruesome details of what's going on. I understand the strategy, and I know every country that's involved with us and those that are not. that said, as much as I wish Jack was right, I wish I could say that's exactly true. There's no secret that the ambition of the Islamic State is worldwide caliphate. That they have stated quite emphatically that we are their ultimate goal. And for those that don't believe it, 9/11/2001 was real. That wasn't a manufactured deal. That wasn't a George Bush conspiracy. That wasn't some sort of Hollywood production. That was real. And the beheadings of those 2 Americans, that was real. That wasn't just some production. So we've got serious issues. They're coming after us. I'd rather fight them there than here. That said, the president has asked for our support in arming Syrian rebels that are vetted. They have to be vetted. I'm confident, visiting with General Dempsey and others, that they'll do a good job of that. It's not without its risk. But with regard to soldiers, I can tell you I've talked to a lot of soldiers, lots of soldiers, current and past. They're war weary, but they also don't like to fight wars from behind. And they're very frustrated with their commander-in-chief and his inability and unwillingness to demonstrate a stronger front. We are the freest nation in the world, the strongest nation in the world. They're coming for us next. I'd rather go for them.
Okay, next issue comes from our co-sponsor AARP. How would you protect Social Security and Medicare for today's seniors and also for future generations? George Sinner, you start off this time.
I'd like to say that I believe Social Security and Medicare are strong programs that need to be tweaked a little bit to keep viable. Now that said, I know that our Congressman Kramer has for most of his life been on government health care, yet he has voted to turn Medicare into a voucher program. And let me talk about that a little bit. My parents are both in their 80s, and I can't possibly imagine them getting a voucher slip in the mail and then having to go buy their own insurance and manage that process. They would have nowhere to turn except for family members to try and help them with that process. I think that's wrong, and I think we can tweak this system, and there are things going on today that will make Medicare more viable in the long term. Regarding Social Security, we all know that Social Security fund needs to be replenished, and we can work on that. But if we're going to raise the age, for example, of Social Security, we better take into account that both Kevin and I and Jack, for the most part, sit behind desks. Well, there are folks out there that work every day climbing poles or working on oil rigs that don't have the luxury to their bodies the same as us. They may have to draw a little earlier. So we have to take all of these things into account when we look at the rules that we're going to change.
Need a response from Kevin Kramer? Go ahead.
Well, no, I think he makes important points, and I think the issue really is the sooner we tweak, as to use George's term, I think it's a good term, the sooner we tweak these policies, the smaller, the less extreme the fix is going to have to be. I mean, Medicare is scheduled to be insolvent anywhere from 12 to 14 years, depending on the economy, things like that. That's according to the trustees. A small fix today has a big effect down the line, but if we wait until it's insolvent, it'll take a 25% cut in benefits to meet it. So he's right. The sooner we do it, the better. Same with Social Security. The thing I do favor though is to make sure that seniors, current seniors, and even future seniors, soon to be on the programs, aren't affected in any way. That they get the program that they signed up for, that they've always believed and invested in, that they were going to get, and that seniors after that have options to include Medicare as we know it. And I think options are really the key to have some opportunity for the market to work, create a little competition, much like Medicare Part D. Medicare Part D was roundly criticized early on, but it's actually brought prescription drug costs down because it was a combination of the government working in the marketplace.
Did you get last word from Jack Seaman, then move to closing statements? Jack?
Well, when you're talking about Social Security and Medicare, you know, these are big, huge portions of our budget, and they're driving debt and spending. And the one number I focus on is 18 trillion. That's what our national debt is as of now. And we do need to reform these programs. There's no doubt about it. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of $120 trillion. I can't even imagine that figure in future unfunded liabilities. So the problem needs to be addressed. As far as Social Security goes, we can take care of the seniors and the people that are close to the retirement age and keep that program intact for them so nothing changes. But for younger people, especially the millennials that don't think they're ever going to see a dime of Social Security, we need to offer them a program to where they might have the ability to opt out of Social Security if they chose to. We need to find a way to make this program available for those that are close to retirement and give the younger folks an option. As far as Medicare, Medicaid, I would like to see those programs have those funds block granted from the federal government back to the states. Then you have 50 centers of innovation driving best practices and lowering costs rather than having that
We need to
program
get to
one by
closing
one
statements. I know
behemoth
it's-
organization.
Thank you. It goes very fast. Kevin Kramer, closing statement. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, thanks again, Matt, and to my opponents and to AARP, and thank you, North Dakotans, for the opportunity. You know, my first term, we did some big things, and a lot more needs to be done. We did pass a farm bill, and I was pleased to be part of the coalition that worked hard on it, both in the House and working across the aisle with the Senate to get a good farm bill passed. We did pass a Water Resources Development Act that secures the authorization for the flood relief program for Fargo and Cass County and up and down the river. Very pleased with that. We were able to pass some flood insurance premium reforms that make flood insurance premiums much more affordable. We were able to cut, again, the deficit and cut spending real time and over now 3 years in a row, but we've got a lot more to do. Next year, we've got comprehensive tax reform we hope to take up. Jack will be pleased with that if he gets the opportunity to work on that. And of course, a highway bill, a long-term highway bill that further secures the infrastructure and the economy of our state and of our country. Thanks again for the opportunity. Look forward to seeing you all on the campaign.
Okay, Jack Seaman, closing statement.
Well, again, I'd like to thank Kevin and George for being here, and thank you, Matt, for having me in the debate and the Prairie Public. I do appreciate it. I understand that, you know, sometimes some of the things I say might sound a little edgy or a little unique, but I'm an honest man and I speak very plainly and right to the point. And I do believe firmly that our country is teetering on the brink of something that may be very bad. And I don't believe it shows American weakness at all. It actually shows American leadership to be very, very cautious about how we're going to spend our blood and treasure in needless wars that we intervene in 6,000 miles away. I believe that we need to find a way to completely remodel our taxation system. And I think we need to find a way to restore our Fourth Amendment rights and get the NSA off our backs and get back to a life of liberty and individual freedom. And that's what being Americans and being a libertarian is all about. And that's what I'm going to pursue as your congressman.
Okay, George Sinner, closing statement.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks to the Prairie Public and to AARP for hosting this event. Thank to my opponents for being here. You know, like I said before, it's quite obvious that Congress has got the lowest approval rating in history and that it's broken. We need to do some changes. There's no question about that. And all of us, I think, will work hard to represent this state in some ways. I believe that with my past business experience, over 35 years of helping small businesses, farmers, and young families grow their lives and solve their problems, that I am uniquely qualified to work for North Dakotans. Across this state, I have heard from Democrats and Republicans and others who call themselves independents who asked me to run for this job. Why did I step up? Because I believe that we needed to change. I believe that Congressman Kramer in many cases has not represented North Dakota, but has represented the Tea Party faction of his own party in Washington. And I will pledge to you, one, I will be different. I will work on your behalf.
Okay, that was
My
time.
door
That's 1
will always
minute.
be open,
Thank
and
you.
I'll work on your behalf. Thank
And
you.
thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you for watching Prairie Public's coverage of election 2014. So long.
Funding for Election 2014 coverage is provided in part by AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan association, 86,000 strong in North Dakota. AARP fights on real issues that matter to you and your family. And by the members of Prairie Public.